Sarah had always loved old houses. There was something about their charm, their history, that drew her in. So, when she found a quaint, century-old home in a quiet suburban neighborhood, she didn't think twice. It was perfect, or so it seemed. The first few days were uneventful. She unpacked her boxes, arranged her furniture, and tried to make the place feel like home. But then she started noticing little things. The way the floorboards creaked, even when no one was walking on them. The faint smell of mildew that seemed to come from nowhere. And the basement. She avoided it at first. It was dark, damp, and gave her an uneasy feeling every time she passed the door. One night, Sarah was woken up by a sound. It was faint, almost like a whisper, but it was coming from the basement. She told herself it was just the wind or the pipes, but the sound was too deliberate, too human. The next day, she decided to investigate. Armed with a flashlight, she descended the creaky stairs into the basement. The air was thick, and the walls seemed to close in around her. That's when she noticed something strange. A section of the wall didn't look right. The bricks were slightly uneven, as if they'd been moved and replaced. Curiosity got the better of her. She pushed against the bricks, and to her shock, they gave way. Behind them was a hidden room, small, dark, and reeking of something foul. Inside, she found old, rusted tools, a chair with frayed ropes tied to its legs, and a journal. The pages were filled with frantic scribbles, words like, "Help me," and "He's watching," repeated over and over. Sarah tried to convince herself it was just some old relic from the past, but that night the whispers returned. This time they were louder, closer. She could have sworn she heard footsteps coming from the basement. The next morning she called the police. They searched the house but found nothing. No hidden room, no journal, no evidence of anyone else living there. They told her it was probably just her imagination, but Sarah knew what she'd seen. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. She'd wake up to find her furniture moved, her belongings rearranged. One night, she saw a shadow standing at the foot of her bed, just staring. She screamed, and it vanished. But the feeling of being watched never went away. Desperate for answers, Sarah decided to confront whatever was haunting her. She went back to the basement, determined to find the hidden room again. But this time it was different. The air was colder, heavier, and the whispers were deafening. As she reached the wall, she heard a sound behind her, a low, guttural growl. She turned, and there, in the corner of the room, was a figure. It was hunched over, its face obscured by shadows, but she could feel its eyes on her. She froze, unable to move, as it began to crawl toward her. Somehow, she managed to run. She bolted up the stairs, slammed the basement door shut, and locked it. She hasn't gone back since. Sarah moved out of the house a week later. She couldn't stay there any longer. But even now, years later, she swears she can still hear the whispers. She wonders if the hidden room is still there, waiting for someone else to find it. The police never found any evidence of what she described. The house was sold to a new family, and as far as she knows, nothing strange has happened to them. But Sarah can't shake the feeling that whatever was in that house is still there, watching, waiting. Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried, and sometimes the things we find hidden in the dark find us. Let's move to the next story. Sometimes the scariest things aren't lurking outside your home, but hidden within it. These are 3 real and terrifying encounters with hidden rooms that were never meant to be found. I had just moved into my first house, a modest 2-bedroom place in a quiet suburban neighborhood. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was mine, and that was enough. The house had been on the market for a while. The previous owner had died under unclear circumstances. The realtor was vague, just said he was older and lived alone. I didn't think much of it. A few weeks in, I noticed strange little things. Closet doors slightly open when I knew I'd shut them, objects in slightly different places. I chalked it up to stress or forgetfulness. But then, one night, something happened that I couldn't ignore. I woke up to a faint scraping sound. It wasn't loud, but it was persistent, like something being dragged against wood. Half asleep, I figured it was a branch against the house, until I realized the sound was coming from inside. I grabbed my phone and followed the noise to the closet in the hallway. My heart pounded as I slowly pulled the door open. At first, nothing seemed out of place, just old coats and storage boxes. But then I noticed it. The back panel of the closet was slightly ajar. I reached forward and pulled, revealing a narrow, pitch-black crawl space. There was something in there. I could feel it before I saw it. I turned on my phone flashlight and aimed it inside. The light caught movement, a shape pulling away, deeper into the crawl space. My stomach dropped. I slammed the closet door and ran. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I called the police. They searched the crawl space and found a makeshift bed, empty food wrappers, and a hole cut through the wall leading to the attic. Someone had been living in my house, watching me, moving around when I wasn't looking. The cops never found him. I moved out 2 days later. But sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear I can still hear that faint scraping sound. Let's move to the next terrified story if you not get bored from me. My brother, Eric, bought a fixer-upper in a small town. The place had been abandoned for years. From the start, things felt off. At night, he'd hear faint rustling in the walls. At first, he thought it was mice. Then one night, he heard something different. A cough. Human. Terrified, Eric started searching the house, knocking on the walls. In one of the upstairs bedrooms, he found it. A section of the wall that sounded hollow. He grabbed a hammer and started pulling at the drywall. Behind it was a hidden room, a tiny windowless space no bigger than a closet. Inside, he found a filthy mattress, a broken lamp, and a pile of his missing clothes. Someone had been living there. But the worst part, on the wall there was a message, scrawled in red over and over. "I watch you sleep." Eric got out of the house that night. The police never found the person, but when they checked the house's history, they discovered something chilling. The previous owner had reported hearing whispers, seeing shadows in the hall. He tried to investigate but went missing before he could sell the house. His body was never found. Eric refuses to talk about it now, but he still sleeps with the lights on, and sometimes he swears he can hear scratching inside the walls. Some houses hold secrets, and some secrets should never be uncovered. If you ever find a hidden door, a crawl space, or an extra room that wasn't supposed to be there, ask yourself, why was it hidden in the first place? Sweet dreams, if you can sleep tonight. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you can't sleep, my friend.